Turn it off. That's what I would say. It's hard for young people now because they're hooked. They're addicted. If you don't think you're addicted, and I'm talking about anyone, from the highest to the lowest, if you don't think you're addicted, then see if you can turn it off for a week. It got quiet in here, didn't it? Didn't it get real quiet? It's a tool, so we should use it. God has blessed us with free will. Now it's free will magnified, free will on steroids. You're free to go in any direction you want. It will allow you, and it's not the enemy. It's just it's just a reflection of our own free will. You know? And we all want to be liked, but now we want to be liked by 16 million. And will now some of us do anything to be liked? We used to do anything to be liked, but it was by the person in front of you. Now it's to be liked by 16 million people that you don't know. We have to ask ourselves, what is the long-term, if not the short-term effect of too much information?
We know that engagement with social media and our cell phones releases a chemical called dopamine. That's why when you get a text, it feels good, right? So, we've all had it where you're feeling a little bit down or feeling a bit lonely, and so you send out 10 texts to 10 friends, hi, 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 hi. Because it feels good when you get a response, right? Right? It's why we count the likes. It's why we go back 10 times to see if my Instagram is growing slower. Did I do something wrong? Do they not like me anymore, right? The trauma for young kids to be unfriended, right? Because we know when you get a hit of dopamine, which feels good. It's why we like it. It's why we keep going back to it. Dopamine is the exact same chemical that makes us feel good when we smoke, when we drink, and when we gamble. In other words, it's highly, highly addictive, right? We have age restrictions on smoking, gambling, and alcohol, and we have no age restrictions on social media and cell phones, which is the equivalent of opening up the liquor cabinet and saying to our teenagers, hey, by the way, this adolescence thing, if it gets you down. But that's basically what's happening. That's basically what's happening, right? That's basically what happened. You have an entire generation that has access to an addictive, numbing chemical called dopamine through social media and cell phones as they're going through the high stress of adolescence.
There's so many distractions and there's so many enemies that are out there, and it's literally rewiring our brain. Even social media, the challenge is, with these terms like Facebook depression and everything, because this is social media depression, because whereas everyone's looking at their feed and they're comparing their lives to other people, their highlights of other people's lives.
Wow.
And there's actually less life satisfaction, more sadness, depression, and stuff like that, because everyone's comparing themselves to. It's a challenge, but more and more time is spent there. But these devices are created to literally jolt you with dopamine, give you these fixes.
And I love the technological age. I love how accessible information is. I love that we have education at our fingertips. I love that it's disrupting everything. It does have the tremendous ability to cause a distraction addiction. And we need to be careful with our children and with ourselves of how we consume. Now, what does that mean? It's a very interesting topic. How do we consume in a way that doesn't hurt our mental health, that doesn't cause neural pathways of addiction and distraction addiction?
I feel like because people aren't memorizing things, they're losing their ability to remember things because they're outsourcing their brains to their smart devices, right? Everything is kept here so they don't have to be able to keep it here. And the challenge is I believe that the mind is more like a muscle as opposed to a supercomputer that's use it or lose it, grows stronger with use. But a lot of people aren't using it as much as they used to. And so, because think about it, before technology, how would you have to remember personal history and all your lessons? You would pass it around, share it over with stories like this. And that's why I love this kind of context. There'd be a fire here and we'd be sharing this and it'd be part of who we are. And I feel people are losing that ability. So I think storytelling is so important to be able to teach, right? Interpersonal skills.
Almost every alcoholic discovered alcohol when they were teenagers. When we're very, very young, the only approval we need is the approval of our parents. And as we go through adolescence, we make this transition where we now need the approval of our peers. Very frustrating for our parents, very important for us. It allows us to acculturate outside of our immediate families into the broader tribe, right? It's a highly, highly stressful and anxious period of our lives, and we're supposed to learn to rely on our friends. Some people, quite by accident, discover alcohol and numbing effects of dopamine to help them cope with the stresses and anxieties of adolescence. Unfortunately, that becomes hardwired in their brains, and for the rest of their lives, when they suffer significant stress, they will not turn to a person, they will turn to the bottle. Social stress, financial stress, career stress, that's pretty much the primary reasons why an alcoholic drinks, right? What's happening is because we're allowing unfettered access to these dopamine-producing devices and media, basically it's becoming hardwired, and what we're seeing is as they grow older, too many kids don't know how to form deep, meaningful relationships. Their words, not mine. They will admit that many of their friendships are superficial. They will admit that their friends, that they don't count on their friends, they don't rely on their friends, they have fun with their friends, but they also know that their friends will cancel on them if something better comes along. Deep, meaningful relationships are not there because they never practice the skill set, and worse, they don't have the coping mechanisms to deal with stress. So when significant stress starts to show up in their lives, they're not turning to a person, they're turning to a device, they're turning to social media, they're turning to these things which offer temporary relief. We know, the science is clear, we know that people who spend more time on Facebook suffer higher rates of depression than people who spend less time on Facebook, right? These things balanced. Alcohol is not bad, too much alcohol is bad. Gambling is fun, too much gambling is dangerous, right? There's nothing wrong with social media and cell phones. It's the imbalance, right? If you're sitting at dinner with your friends and you're texting somebody who's not there, that's a problem. That's an addiction. If you're sitting in a meeting with people you're supposed to be listening to and speaking, and you put your phone on the table, face up or face down, I don't care, that sends a subconscious message to the room that you're just not that important to me right now, right? That's what happens. And the fact that you cannot put it away is because you are addicted, right? If you wake up and you check your phone before you say good morning to your girlfriend, boyfriend, or spouse, you have an addiction. And like all addiction, in time, it'll destroy relationships, it'll cost time, and it'll cost money, and it'll make your life worse.
I love sharing space and time with modern day superheroes, but there are also some modern day supervillains, right? These ideas of these phenomena of like digital overload. How many people feel like when you're learning something, it feels like you're taking a sip of water out of a fire hose? Raise your hand, right? And not just that, it has an effect on our health also, right? They call it information fatigue syndrome. Information fatigue syndrome, because everything is a syndrome, right? So higher blood pressure, compression of leisure time, more sleeplessness, or even if you have a little bit of free time, you can't even enjoy it because your mind's still multitasking. And also not just the supervillain of digital overload, but digital distraction. How many people feel like your mind is so distracted and you can't focus on just one thing anymore? Raise your hand. And this is a challenge. That takes away from your ability to be present, your ability to be able to get things done, your ability to be able to be profitable. And I don't just mean financially profitable, that's obvious, right? We live in an age where it's not your muscle power, it's more your mind power. It's not your brute strength, it's your brain strength, right? And so the faster you can learn, certainly the faster you can earn, but not just financially, in all the areas of your life, all the treasures of your life, your health, your relationships, your career.
I look at our bodies like an amazing machine. And it's an amazing machine. Our brain is actually not the driver, it's the steering wheel. So who's the driver? I think it's our observer. When we get so caught up in our mind, we're desperate for an escape. For me, that's where mindfulness tools come into play with how we interface with everything. You have to give yourself a break from your mind that's a healthy habit and not just constantly a distraction.
Is just a lot of people, they give away their sovereignty and their power first thing in the morning. Like the first thing in the morning, they'll pick up their phone and they'll check everything, because there's the way it's set up, right? They're getting their dopamine fixes and it's just really rewiring their brain. So it's training them just to be distracted all the times. Sleep is so important for your memory, right? For your brain health. That's when you're clearing out the plaque, that's where you consolidate short to long-term memory. But we live in this age, because we're so distracted and we're multitasking and technology and digital stuff, we're just not getting the sleep that we need.
Put the thing down. Yeah. Look up. You're missing stuff. What is the long-term effect of too much information? We don't know, but we're finding out. I know in my country, the polarization of the electorate, a mean-spiritedness. We've gone from radio presidents to television presidents to internet presidents to BlackBerry presidents to a Twitter president. Where are we going? And I'm not just knocking that man. I'm talking about all of us. Can you put it down? Are you using it or is it using you? And where is it leading you? And I'm not telling you, oh, I'm against the establishment and all of that. I'm telling you, at least ask yourselves, What is the long-term effect of too much information? What is it doing to me? Is there a need for 24 hours a day news? Is there 24 hours a day worth of news?